My name's Deborah, and let me paint you a picture of my family. There's my mom, Karen, yeah, fitting name, I know. She's all about her career and freedom. Then there's my dad, Tom, who's about as useful as a screen door on a submarine when it comes to parenting. My sister, Jessica, is 14 years older than me and couldn't care less about my existence. I came into this world as an unwelcome surprise. Mom was 42 when she found out she was pregnant with me. She thought it was menopause at first. Guess the universe has a twisted sense of humor. When she finally dragged herself to the doctor, it was too late to take care of it, if you catch my drift. From what I pieced together over the years, it went something like this. Tom, what the hell are we going to do? Mom probably screeched, pacing around their bedroom. Dad, being the spineless wonder he is, probably just shrugged. I don't know, Karen. Maybe we should talk to my dad? And that's how Grandpa Joe got roped into this mess. He's loaded and lives in Canada, but he flew down to play peacemaker. Karen, Tom, listen, he must have said, all calm and collected. I know this isn't what you planned, but it's happening. I'll help you out financially. Just give this child a chance. Mom, being the career-obsessed woman she is, probably huffed and puffed before finally agreeing. Fine, but I'm not letting this kid derail my life. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how I, Deborah, came to be. Born premature, with a whole host of health problems, and into a family that saw me as nothing more than an inconvenience. My early days were spent more in the hospital than at home. Mom couldn't be bothered to show up most of the time. It was Dad and Aunt Sarah who took turns keeping watch over my incubator. Aunt Sarah, now there's a saint if I ever met one. No kids or husband of her own, she latched onto me like a lifeline. While my own mother was probably off closing deals and climbing the corporate ladder, Aunt Sarah was there, holding my tiny hand through the incubator's holes, whispering words of encouragement. When I finally got to go home, Grandpa Joe swooped in again. Our house wasn't big enough for 2 kids, apparently. So, he bought us a new one. Growing up in that house was like living in a museum. Look, but don't touch. Don't make noise. Don't exist too loudly. I learned pretty damn quick that I wasn't part of the exhibit, just some unwanted artifact they couldn't get rid of. Mom and Dad were always working. When they weren't, they acted like I was some kind of leech, sucking the life out of them. We had a parade of nannies coming through the house. Some were nice, some weren't, but none of them stuck around long enough to matter. Jessica, my so-called sister, might as well have been a stranger living in the same house. 14 years is a hell of an age gap, and she made it clear she had no interest in playing big sister. I remember one time, I must have been about 6, I tried to hang out in her room while she was getting ready for college. Jessica, can I watch you do your makeup? I asked, peering around her doorframe. She barely glanced at me. No, Deborah. I'm busy. Go play with your toys or something. But I don't want to play alone, I whined. Can't we do something together? She slammed her mascara down on the dresser and whirled to face me. Look, we're not friends, okay? I'm not here to entertain you. Go bother Mom or Dad. That was pretty much the extent of our sisterly bonding. Mom was even worse. Every day when she got home from work, it was the same routine. She'd walk in, kick off her heels, and make a beeline for the liquor cabinet. Mom, I'd call out, excited to see her. Can we play a game? Or read a story? She'd pour herself a large glass of wine and sigh heavily. For God's sake, Deborah. Can't you see I need some peace and quiet? Go to your room and play by yourself. You're old enough to entertain yourself. And Dad? He'd promised Mom he'd take care of me if she had me. What a joke that turned out to be. He was always too busy or too tired to spend time with me. His favorite phrase became, "Not now, Deborah." I remember overhearing them argue about it once. I was supposed to be in bed, but I'd snuck out to get a glass of water. Tom, you promised you'd help with her, Mom hissed. I can't do this all on my own. What do you want from me, Karen," Dad shot back. "I work all day too. I'm exhausted when I get home." "She's always so needy." I didn't stick around to hear the rest. I'd heard enough to know where I stood in their eyes, a burden, an obligation, a mistake they were stuck with. After a while, I stopped trying. What was the point? I learned to entertain myself, to be quiet, to stay out of their way. I became a ghost in my own home, drifting from room to room, trying not to disturb the real family. The only bright spot in my life was Aunt Sarah. She lived nearby, and I started spending more and more time at her place. Weekends, holidays, any chance I got, really. With Aunt Sarah, I felt seen, heard, loved even. We'd spend hours doing puzzles, baking cookies, or just talking. She'd ask me about school, my friends, my hopes and dreams. Things my own parents never bothered with. Life has a funny way of throwing curveballs when you least expect them. I was 14, minding my own business, trying to survive another day in the emotional wasteland I called home, when my parents dropped a bombshell on me. "Deborah," Mom said, her voice unusually chipper. "We have wonderful news. Your sister Jessica is getting married, and she's pregnant." Dad chimed in, grinning like an idiot. "We're going to be grandparents." I forced a smile, wondering why the hell they were telling me this like I should be jumping for joy. "That's great," I managed to say. "We're going to be very busy preparing for the wedding," Mom continued, not even noticing my lack of enthusiasm. "So, we want you to stay with your Aunt Sarah for a while." I blinked, processing their words. They wanted to ship me off? Because of a wedding? Part of me wanted to be hurt, but honestly, it was the best news I'd heard in years. "Sure," I said, trying not to sound too eager. "I'd love to stay with Aunt Sarah." They looked relieved, probably expecting me to put up a fight. Shows how little they knew me. I packed my bags faster than you could say unwanted child and practically skipped to Aunt Sarah's house. Months flew by. The wedding preparations were in full swing, but I couldn't care less. I was too busy enjoying my new life. Aunt Sarah and I would cook together, watch movies, go for walks in the park. She'd help me with my homework, listen to me ramble about my day at school, and actually seemed interested in what I had to say. Before I knew it, a week before Jessica's wedding rolled around. It was also my 15th birthday. That morning, I woke up to the smell of pancakes and the sound of Aunt Sarah singing off-key in the kitchen. I grinned, padding downstairs in my pajamas. "Happy birthday, my dear," Aunt Sarah exclaimed, pulling me into a bone-crushing hug. "I've got a surprise for you." She handed me a beautifully wrapped box. "It's from your grandfather, he sent it yesterday." I tore into the wrapping paper, my eyes widening as I revealed a brand new smartphone, the latest model, no less. I dialed Grandpa Joe's number, my heart racing with excitement. "Hello, birthday girl," his warm voice filled the line. "Do you like your present?" "Like it? Grandpa, I love it." "Thank you so much." We chatted for a bit, and then he asked the question I'd been dreading. "So, how did your parents congratulate you?" I hesitated, not wanting to admit the truth. "Oh, I haven't seen them yet. I was planning to go home soon, actually. I'm sure they'll say something then." There was a pause on the other end of the line. Then, "I see. Well, why don't you do a live broadcast when you go? I'd love to share in the joy." With a mixture of hope and dread churning in my stomach, I made my way back to my parents' house. The walk felt both too long and too short. As I turned onto our street, I took a deep breath and started the live broadcast on my new phone. "Hey, Grandpa," I said, trying to sound cheerful. "I'm on my way to see Mom and Dad now. Thanks again for the awesome phone." I chatted away as I walked, filling the silence with babble about my morning with Aunt Sarah and how excited I was about my birthday. But as I approached our house, a sense of unease crept over me. "Well, here we are," I announced to the camera, climbing the front steps. I hesitated for a moment before pushing open the door. "Mom? Dad? I'm home." Silence greeted me. The house felt eerily quiet, almost abandoned. I frowned, panning the camera around the empty living room. Guess they're not down here, I muttered, more to myself than to Grandpa. I'll check upstairs. I climbed the stairs, my footsteps echoing in the quiet house. As I reached the top, I noticed something odd. The door to my room was closed, which was unusual. I always left it open when I wasn't home. That's weird, I said, reaching for the doorknob. My door's never closed. I pushed it open and froze. The room that greeted me was not my room. At least, not anymore. The walls, once a soft lavender, were now a pale blue. My posters were gone, replaced by cutesy animal prints. My bed had vanished, and in its place stood a white crib. What the hell? I gasped, stumbling backward. The phone nearly slipped from my grasp as I spun around, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. This can't be right. This is my room. Just then, I heard a door open behind me. I whirled around to see my parents emerging from their bedroom, looking startled to see me. "Deborah?" Mom said, her eyes darting between me and the phone in my hand. "What are you doing here?" I barely registered her words, still reeling from the shock of my transformed room. "What happened to my room?" I demanded. "Why is it blue? Where's all my stuff?" Dad cleared his throat, looking uncomfortable. "Well, you see, Deborah, we've decided to give this room to your sister's baby. Our first grandson." Mom nodded, a smile plastering itself across her face. "Yes, isn't it wonderful? Jessica's having a boy, the son your father's always dreamed of having. He'll be living here with us after the wedding." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. But where am I supposed to sleep? Where's my stuff? "Oh, we packed up your things," Dad said, waving his hand dismissively. "They're in boxes downstairs. You should take them with you when you leave. We don't want them cluttering up the place." I stared at them, unable to comprehend what I was hearing. "Leave? What do you mean, leave? This is my home." Mom's smile faltered for a moment before she forced it back into place. "Deborah, dear, you have to understand. With Jessica and her husband moving in, and the baby on the way, well, there's just no room for you here anymore." I stood there, frozen in disbelief, my mind reeling from what I'd just heard. Suddenly, a surge of anger welled up inside me, pushing through the shock. "No," I said, my voice shaking. "No, I won't leave. This is my home too. You can't just throw me out like I'm nothing." Mom's fake smile vanished, replaced by a look of irritation. "For heaven's sake, Deborah. Don't be difficult." "Difficult?" I spat back. "It's my birthday, and you're kicking me out. You didn't even remember, did you?" Dad rolled his eyes. "Your birthday? Is that what this tantrum is about? We don't have time for this nonsense." Their callousness hit me like a physical blow. I felt tears welling up in my eyes, but I blinked them back furiously. "How can you be so cruel? I'm your daughter. A daughter we never wanted," Mom snapped, her composure finally cracking. "Do you have any idea how much you've cost us? How much attention you've demanded? We're exhausted, Deborah." Dad nodded, his face twisted with annoyance. "We didn't want a second child. You were a mistake, an accident. And now, we finally have a chance at the family we always wanted." Their words cut deep, each one a knife to my heart. I watched in stunned silence as they grabbed the bags they'd packed with my belongings and started shoving them out the front door. "There," Mom said, dusting off her hands. "Now take your things and go to your precious Aunt Sarah. She loves you so much, let her deal with you." I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. This couldn't be happening. It had to be a nightmare. "What are you waiting for?" Dad barked. "Get out. We have a wedding to prepare for, and we don't need you here complicating things." That's when the dam broke. Tears streamed down my face as the full weight of their rejection crashed over me. "How could you do this to me?" I sobbed. I'm your child. Stop it, Mom hissed, glancing nervously at the windows. You're embarrassing us. The neighbors will hear. Good, I shouted through my tears. Let them hear. Let everyone know what kind of people you really are. Dad grabbed my arm, his fingers digging in painfully. That's enough, he growled, practically dragging me to the door. Get out, now. And don't come back. With one final shove, I found myself on the front porch, my bags scattered around me. The door slammed shut behind me with a finality that echoed in my bones. I don't know how long I sat there, sobbing on the steps. Eventually, I gathered my things and started the long, miserable walk back to Aunt Sarah's. The bags felt impossibly heavy, weighed down by more than just my possessions. As I trudged along, sniffling and wiping my eyes, a familiar voice suddenly cut through my misery. Deborah, can you hear me? I jumped, looking around wildly before realizing the voice was coming from my phone. With a jolt of horror, I remembered the live broadcast. Grandpa had seen everything. Grandpa? I stammered, lifting the phone with trembling hands. Oh, sweetheart, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I'm so sorry you had to go through that. Look, we'll sort this out, I promise. For now, go to Sarah's. We'll see each other at the wedding in a few days, okay? Try to enjoy your birthday. Somehow, his words managed to calm me down a little. By the time I reached Aunt Sarah's, my tears had mostly subsided. She took one look at me, standing there with my bags and puffy eyes, and pulled me into a fierce hug. Aunt Sarah, bless her heart, insisted we celebrate my birthday properly. She let me invite a few friends over, baked a cake, and did her best to make the day special. The day of Jessica's wedding arrived. I hadn't been invited, of course, but Aunt Sarah insisted we go anyway. So there I was, decked out in my best dress, feeling like an imposter as we walked into the reception hall. I spotted Grandpa Joe almost immediately. He was sitting at a table near the front, his back ramrod straight, radiating an energy that made me nervous. Before we even had time to say hello, the newlyweds made their grand entrance. Jessica looked radiant in her white gown, beaming as she clung to her new husband's arm. Mom and Dad followed, pride evident in their faces, and I felt a pang in my chest. The reception progressed with toasts, dinner, and the usual festivities. As the congratulatory speeches began during the festive dinner, Grandpa Joe suddenly stood up. I have something to say, he announced, his voice ringing out across the hall. Every head turned. Jessica and her groom looked confused. Mom and Dad went pale. Grandpa Joe marched to the front of the room, commandeering the microphone from the stunned best man. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, I apologize for interrupting this joyous occasion, but there's a grave injustice that needs to be addressed. He then launched into a detailed account of how my parents had treated me. He spared no detail, from their resentment of my birth to the cruel way they'd kicked me out on my birthday. With each word, the guests' expressions changed from confusion to shock to outrage. Mom tried to interrupt, her face beat red. Jessica was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. Her new husband looked uncomfortable, shifting in his seat. The guests were whispering among themselves, shooting scandalized looks at my parents. Grandpa turned to face my parents directly, his voice cold as ice. So let me make this clear. I'm changing my will. Every cent I have will go to Sarah and Deborah. Tom, Karen, Jessica, you're cut off. Completely. The reception hall erupted into chaos. Mom let out a strangled cry, Dad's face turned an alarming shade of purple. Jessica wailed something about her ruined wedding. But Grandpa wasn't done. He walked over to where Aunt Sarah and I sat, shell-shocked by the spectacle. Come on, girls, he said gently. We're leaving. We don't need to stay where we're not wanted. In a daze, I stood up and followed him. As we walked towards the exit, I could feel every eye on me. Some looked sympathetic, others judgmental. I kept my gaze fixed on Grandpa's back, willing myself not to cry. The morning after the wedding disaster, I woke up to the sound of insistent knocking on Aunt Sarah's front door. Bleary-eyed and still processing the events of the previous day, I stumbled downstairs to find Mom and Dad on the porch, looking a strange mix of desperate and contrite. "Deborah, sweetie," Mom cooed, her voice sickeningly sweet. "We need to talk. We want you to come home, honey. We're so sorry about everything. We love you, we really do." I felt a surge of anger rising in my chest. "Love me? You kicked me out. You said I was a mistake." They launched into a litany of apologies and explanations, each one more pathetic than the last. But as I stood there, listening to their desperate pleas, a realization hit me like a ton of bricks. This wasn't about me at all. "This is about the inheritance, isn't it?" I said, cutting off Dad mid-sentence. Their faces fell, confirming my suspicions. They didn't want me back, they wanted Grandpa's money. "Get out," I said, my voice shaking with anger. "I don't want to see either of you ever again." I slammed the door in their faces, leaning against it as I tried to calm my racing heart. But my parents weren't done. Over the next few days, they showed up repeatedly, each time more insistent than the last. They called, they sent emails, they even tried to rope in other family members to convince me. It all came to a head about a week after the wedding. I was home alone when I heard a commotion outside. To my horror, I saw Mom and Dad trying to force their way past Aunt Sarah, who had just returned from the grocery store. "She's our daughter," Dad was yelling. "You can't keep her from us." Something in me snapped. I'd had enough of their manipulation, their lies, their sudden concern for my well-being now that money was on the line. "Aunt Sarah," I called out, my voice steadier than I felt. "I want you to be my legal guardian." The words hung in the air for a moment. Then Aunt Sarah's face broke into a wide smile. "Oh, sweetie, I'd be honored." With Aunt Sarah's help, we contacted a lawyer the very next day. The process wasn't easy, there were forms to fill out, interviews to conduct, and a court hearing to attend. But through it all, I held on to one piece of evidence that I knew would make all the difference: the video from my ill-fated birthday visit home. The day of the court hearing arrived, and I felt sick to my stomach. My parents were there, of course, playing the role of concerned, loving parents to the hilt. But when the judge asked for evidence, and we played that video, the one where they kicked me out, where they told me I was unwanted, the atmosphere in the courtroom changed. I'll never forget the look on the judge's face as she watched my parents callously toss me aside. When the video ended, she turned to them, her expression hard. "In all my years on the bench," she said, "I've rarely seen such a clear case of parental neglect and emotional abuse." The ruling came swiftly after that. Aunt Sarah was granted full legal guardianship, and my parents' rights were terminated. As the gavel came down, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. For the first time in my life, I was free of their toxic influence. Life has a funny way of coming full circle. Just when I thought the drama was finally over, Grandpa Joe called us over to his lawyer's office. As we sat in the plush leather chairs, surrounded by mahogany bookshelves and the smell of old paper, I couldn't help but feel nervous. "Deborah, Sarah," Grandpa began, his voice solemn but his eyes twinkling, "I want you both to know that I've made some changes to my will." He nodded to his lawyer, who pulled out a thick document. "As I promised at the wedding," Grandpa continued, "I've decided to leave my entire estate to you too. Tom and Karen are officially disinherited." I sat there, stunned. I knew Grandpa had threatened this at the wedding, but I never really believed he'd go through with it. As we left the lawyer's office, my head spinning with the implications of what had just happened, my phone rang. It was Jessica. "How could you do this to me?" she screeched as soon as I answered. "You've ruined everything." I pulled the phone away from my ear, wincing at her volume. "What are you talking about?" "Don't play dumb," she snapped. "You turned Grandpa against us. Now he's leaving everything to you and Aunt Sarah. It's not fair. I want my share too." I felt a flash of anger. After everything that had happened, after the way they'd all treated me, she had the nerve to demand money? Look, Jessica, I said, trying to keep my voice level, I didn't ask for any of this. It was Grandpa's decision, not mine. But you must have manipulated him somehow, she insisted. You've always been jealous of me. This is your revenge, isn't it? I took a deep breath, counting to 10 in my head before responding. Jessica, I'm sorry you feel that way. But I had nothing to do with Grandpa's decision. If you want to change his mind, you'll have to talk to him yourself. Maybe I will, she huffed. And don't think this is over, Deborah. You can't just waltz in and steal what's rightfully ours. As she hung up, I felt a mix of emotions, anger, sadness, but mostly just exhaustion. And then I decided to focus on my future. I threw myself into my studies, determined to ace my exams and get into a good college. Aunt Sarah helped me research schools, majors, and scholarship opportunities. Sure, my family situation was far from perfect. There would probably be more drama with Jessica, my parents, and the inheritance down the line. But for now, I had a loving home with Aunt Sarah and Grandpa Joe, a bright future ahead of me, and the strength to face whatever challenges came my way.
Hi, everyone. I'm Scarlett Anderson, a 28-year-old marketing manager at Reynolds & Company. It's been 2 years since my mom, Hannah, married Lucas Jackson. I still remember their wedding day vividly, forcing myself to smile while watching her step into a new chapter of her life. Honey, Lucas's kids are coming over for Sunday dinner. You'll love them, she said with contagious excitement back then. That's when I first met Zoe and Mike, my new step-siblings. Scarlett, you should totally come shopping with me sometime, Zoe offered, her tone warm and welcoming. Yeah, and I can show you some great spots downtown, Mike added with a charming grin. At first, it seemed genuine. But last week, during coffee with my best friend Hazel, she noticed something was off. Girl, you've been canceling our Thursday nights a lot lately. Everything okay? I hesitated. Mom keeps scheduling these mother-daughter lunches, but they always get replaced with Lucas's family events. Hazel frowned, pulling out her phone. Did you see their Instagram? They went to that new restaurant you've been dying to try. She showed me the photos. Mom, Lucas, Zoe, and Mike, all smiling at Javins. No invite, no mention of me. At work the next day, John, my colleague, caught me scrolling through my phone during lunch. Family group chats can be brutal, huh? He said. Just found out they had a barbecue last weekend. Apparently, my invite got lost in the mail. Again. Later, Mom called, her tone apologetic. Hey, sweetie, about this weekend. I already knew what was coming. Cancelled again. Lucas's sister is coming over unexpectedly. You understand, right? Family first. I am family, Mom. Of course you are, honey. It's just different now. We need to make Lucas's family feel welcome. The changes were everywhere. The wall of family photos, once filled with snapshots of my childhood, had been replaced by perfectly coordinated portraits of the new family. My graduation photo, gone. Mom, what happened to my pictures? I asked. Oh, Lucas's decorator suggested a more cohesive look. Your photos are safely stored in the attic, honey. Hazel grabbed my hand across the coffee table. Scarlett, I'm worried about you. You seem different lately. I feel like I'm being erased, I admitted. Like I'm becoming a ghost in my own family. At work, John found me crying in the break room. Want to talk about it? I don't even know who my mom is anymore. She's changed so much since Lucas came into the picture. He handed me a tissue. Sometimes people show their true colors slowly. The question is, how long are you going to keep trying to paint them different? That Sunday, I overheard Zoe in the kitchen. Did you know Scarlett used to cry herself to sleep after their divorce? No wonder she's still messed up. Mike's laughter felt like a punch to the gut. Yeah, Lucas says she's still not over it. That's why she can't keep a relationship. I froze in the hallway, my birthday gift from Mom still in my hands. Everyone, Scarlett's here, Lucas announced, his perfect fatherly smile plastered on. We were just talking about your dad's new baby. That must be hard for you. I wasn't aware Dad had a new baby. Oh dear, Lucas feigned concern. Did I bring up something sensitive? Mom jumped in. Scarlett, honey, don't make a scene. Not everyone needs to know about your emotional struggles. That night, Hazel helped me start a digital diary. Write everything down, dates, times, exact words, she advised. Then, I stumbled across Lucas's ex-wife's social media. Should we reach out? Hazel asked. Eleanor Jackson met me at a quiet coffee shop a few days later. She looked at me knowingly. I wondered when one of Hannah's kids would figure it out. Figure what out? Lucas's pattern, she said grimly. First, he love bombs the mother. Then he isolates her by turning the children against each other. He did it to my kids too. At the next family dinner, Lucas was in rare form. Scarlett's still at that entry-level marketing job, he asked, feigning casual interest. Zoe just got promoted to senior influencer at her agency, he added, beaming. Zoe smirked. Not everyone can handle high-pressure positions. Actually, Scarlett, why do you always have to compete with Zoe? Mom cut in sharply. Can't you just be happy for your sister? Stepsister, I corrected, but Lucas sighed dramatically. See what I mean? Always creating division. That night, their Instagram displayed another perfect family photo captioned, Sunday dinners with our loving family. The comments overflowed with heart emojis. Over coffee the next day, I showed Hazel the text thread from Mom. Look at this. She's gaslighting me about conversations that never even happened. Hazel frowned. Classic manipulation. They're trying to make you question your reality. I scrolled to a specific message. Remember when you promised to help Zoe move, but never showed up? I was never told she was moving. Later, Mike cornered me after dinner. You're making Mom upset with your attitude. Maybe you should take some time to work on yourself. The words slipped out before I could stop them. Like you worked on your gambling. His face darkened. Keep your mouth shut about things you don't understand. Hazel helped me organize everything. Screenshots, recordings, dates. Your mom needs to see this pattern. I shook my head. She won't. She's too deep in his world now. Hazel's tone was firm. Then we document everything. People like this eventually show their true colors. The perfect family photos kept coming. Thanksgiving, Christmas, weekend brunches. All posted after the fact, all without me. One night, Mom called, her voice cracking. I just don't understand why you're being so difficult. Lucas is trying so hard to make this work. Is he, Mom, or is he trying to push me out? There you go again, making everything about you. Maybe Lucas is right, you should consider therapy. I hung up, adding another entry to my growing document of incidents. Hazel's words echoed in my head. The truth always comes out eventually. Then one late night at the office, John rushed to my desk. Scarlett, you need to see this. Lucas's company, Jackson Enterprises, it's under federal investigation. I stared at the report on his screen. Investment fraud. At our next lunch, I told Mom, your sister Susan called. She misses you. Mom dismissed it. Susan's just jealous of my happiness with Lucas. She never supported us, like Emma and Jack. They're all toxic, Scarlett. Lucas helped me see that. My phone buzzed with an unknown number. Hey, this is Tom, Zoe's boyfriend. Ex-boyfriend, actually. Can we meet? At the diner, Tom looked nervous. Zoe's not who she pretends to be. Those brand deals she brags about? Fake. Lucas funds everything. Why are you telling me this? I asked, skeptical. She and Mike laugh about you, he admitted. They plan things to hurt you. I couldn't stay quiet anymore. A week later, Marcus, my friend at the bank, called. Remember when you asked about suspicious transactions? Mike's been hitting underground gambling sites hard, 6 figures hard. Where's he getting the money? Transfers from a shell company. It all traces back to Jackson Enterprises. At Aunt Susan's birthday dinner, the first family event Mom had attended in months, she kept checking her phone, visibly uneasy. Lucas doesn't like me coming to these things, she whispered. Says family just brings drama. Mom, when's the last time you saw your best friend, Carol? She hesitated. Lucas said she was spreading rumors. The evidence folder grew. Screenshots of Zoe's fake contracts, Mike's gambling receipts, leaked documents from John about Jackson Enterprises. They played the perfect family on Instagram while Lucas systematically cut Mom off from anyone who could help her. Tom sent more texts. Zoe's freaking out. The brands are starting background checks. Marcus updated me. Lucas is using Mike's gambling debt as leverage. I recorded everything: manipulative texts, gaslighting comments, excluded relatives. One night, Mom called me in tears. "Scarlett, why are you doing this to our family?" "I'm not doing anything, Mom. I'm just watching it all unfold." John brought more documents to the office. The investigation's getting serious. They're looking into all of Lucas's accounts, including the ones funding Zoe's fake life and Mike's gambling. Everything Hazel and I had organized was ready. "You're not going to confront them?" she asked. "No need. They're doing a perfect job destroying themselves." I scrolled through their latest family photo op. Lucas with his arm around Mom, Zoe in a designer outfit, and Mike forcing a smile. Behind those grins, their house of cards was trembling. Sometimes, I told Hazel, the best revenge is stepping back and letting karma do its job. Tom texted again. "Zoe's having a meltdown. Sponsors are pulling out. Lucas keeps asking about company documents. John had warned me. He's getting desperate." I looked at a recent photo of Mom. Her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. Soon she'd see everything I already knew. Sometimes love means letting people hit rock bottom so they can finally see the truth. The news broke on a Tuesday. Jackson Enterprises CEO indicted in multi-million-dollar fraud scheme. I sipped my coffee in my new corner office, watching the fallout unfold. "Scarlett, congratulations again on the executive marketing director position," John said, dropping the day's paper on my desk. My phone buzzed nonstop. Tom's expose about Zoe's fake influencer career had gone viral. Every brand deal she bragged about, funded by Lucas's fraud. Receipts attached. Hazel texted, "Have you seen Zoe's social media meltdown?" I checked. Zoe's follower count was plummeting, and her last post read, "Everyone's just jealous of my success." The comment section was brutal. At midnight, Mike called from a burner phone. "Listen, Scarlett, about those things I said. Are the debt collectors closing in? Lucas promised to cover it, but with the investigation. Sounds like a you problem." The next update came swiftly. Jackson assets frozen in ongoing investigation. Mom texted me next. "Can we talk? Please." Over coffee, she looked smaller somehow. "Everything's gone, Scarlett. The house, the cars, his accounts. Eleanor warned me this would happen." "Eleanor? Lucas's ex-wife. You spoke to her?" I met her gaze. "I did my research, Mom, while you were busy erasing me from your life." Her voice cracked. "I never meant to." Save it. Actions speak louder than Instagram posts. Breaking news rolled in. Social media influencer Zoe Jackson faces fraud investigation. Tom updated me again. Mike skipped town. Some guys were looking for him at his apartment. Hazel noticed my calm. "You okay?" "Never better. Got approved for that downtown condo today." John brought the final word. "Lucas is looking at 15 years minimum." Mom called again. "I left him, Scarlett. I see everything now. Can we start over?" I hesitated, the past 2 years flashing before me. "Start over?" "You chose him over me, Mom. You watched them hurt me." Her voice broke. "I was blind. Please." I stood firm. "I'm not that desperate daughter anymore. My peace isn't negotiable." The final headlines came. Lucas Jackson sentenced in fraud case. Former influencer Zoe Jackson files for bankruptcy. Mike Jackson named in gambling investigation. In my new condo, I hosted dinner with Hazel, John, Tom, and even Eleanor. Hazel raised her glass. To Scarlett, who didn't need revenge because karma did the job. Mom still texts me sometimes. I respond when I feel like it, on my terms. My therapist once asked if I'd ever forgive her. "Some bridges aren't meant to be rebuilt," I said. "Sometimes the healthiest family is the one you choose." I looked at my wall of achievements, the promotion announcement, my condo deed, my community service award. Success, I realized, is the best revenge, but peace? Peace is priceless. Last I heard, Zoe's working retail, Mike's dodging collectors in another state, and Lucas traded his designer suits for prison orange. Me? I'm living my best life, surrounded by real love, real success, and real peace. Because sometimes walking away isn't the end of the story. It's the beginning of a better one. What about you? If your parents started erasing you for a perfect new family, would you confront them directly or step back and let karma do its job? Share your thoughts below.